Hey, welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. We're bringing you back again, FL Teams Super Bowl breakdown, a breakdown of championship weekend, a preview of upcoming Super Bowl. Once again, Jeremiah Hensley here with you with EJ Farbman, and coming back to keep this ride going. As always, brought to you by FL Teams. FL Teams, can't say enough good stuff, man. All things Florida sports is your one-stop shop. Go to flteams.com. We got you covered for baseball, football, basketball, hockey. As we were just talking from your pros to your colleges. We'll go junior college with you, man. If it's happening in Florida, it's covered with flteams.com. And also helping us bring this podcast and all the others to you, or live stream, I should say, is our sponsor, Symbol. Symbol's the stock market for sports, allows you to trade sports teams like their stocks. You earn cash payouts when your team wins. So Symbol's basically blended sports and the stock market. It offers you a new way to invest and profit off of your favorite teams. Use your sports knowledge to buy low, sell high, earn cash payouts when your team wins. Join the already 6,000 plus early adopters who have started to profit from their sports knowledge. Visit www.symbol.com. That is SIMBULL.com. Or you can visit the link in the description. When you go on and create your account, make sure that you use the promo code FLTeams. That will get you a $10 deposit bonus to help build your portfolio. All right. So with that all out of the way, man, EJ, last week was a little high strung with everything. Don't know that these lived up to that, but we had two really good games over the weekend, man.
Yeah, the only thing they did live up to is it came down to a possession each game, right? Which has kind of been the theme for the most part from the playoffs going forward, is a possession, a field goal, a late touchdown, dating back to the divisional round last week, the week before. And then you have the conference round this past weekend. You have a 27-24 ball game in Cincinnati, and then you have a 2017 ball game in LA. Wire to wire, both games. Not the offense that I think we were expecting to see in either of those matchups, but nonetheless, solid football games.
You know, man, it brings me back to that thought, and I think we talked about it after last weekend's game, or the week before last, was the guy that I had heard this said, when you're playing in the divisional round, you're playing to win. When you're playing in the championship games, you're playing not to lose. Right. And so you see it get tightened up a little bit. This whole playoffs, though, man, I've always thought about, I have one buddy of mine who's always been this advocate of get rid of the kicker, right? Like, you don't need a kicker in the NFL. Oh, it kills everything. Now, what would these playoffs be without kickers?
Well, McPherson would have something to say about that. Robbie Gould would have something to say about that. I mean, there's a couple kickers in this in these playoffs that have. They've worked their contracts worth of kicks in just the postseason so far.
McPherson's going to make people rethink drafting kickers in the 5th round.
Yeah, and you know what? Before McPherson this year, kicking the past 2 years had been abysmal. We'd seen Mason Crosby, longtime kicker for Green Bay, obviously. He had like 7 missed extra points on the year. That's from what I've seen, when you're kicking, it's not as much of a chip shot as the casuals like to think. Sure. But if I'm getting paid $1.85 million to kick 7, 10, 12, 15 extra points within a couple weeks span, I'm going to make sure I do my due diligence and I hit those. But as a kicker, having that one job, you got to see how easy you can probably get into your own head, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you almost got to have the attitude that McPherson walks with, right? Yeah. The way that Vinatieri used to come on the field. Yeah. Those guys that were, this is done.
Mike Vanderjack was one of the same ones, but played for Indy. Mm-hmm. Had a streak for forever of not missing field goals, like inside of 45. I think you have to almost carry the same bit of arrogance / cockiness / confidence as a quarterback would, or as a safety would, whatever position you want to compare it to. To be able to, you get in your own head so easily, you start doubt, and it snowballs down there.
Dude, mental stability in that. I mean, I'll use it as an example. Wouldn't be any show that I'm involved in if I didn't talk Miami. But, in 2020, Jason Sanders was hitting everything, and we counted on him for everything. And, we're pulling the trigger 50 plus and not even blinking an eye. This year, early on, it seemed like Flores went away from him. Like, we were going for it more on 4th and 2 when it was going to be a 48-yarder or a 50-yarder. And then he ended up having one of his worst seasons. So, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Did your coach start doubting you and you started doubting you, or did he realize you couldn't hit him?
And it sucks at that position because they have one job. A quarterback has multifacets to their game: throwing, running, analyzing defenses, breaking things. A kicker has one job. So you got to think when they get down on that one job, they kind of start to question and reanalyze their whole purpose. And that, I'm sure the negative thought process in a kicker for what they do is no different than a negative thought process in a quarterback. You know what I mean?
No, unless you're Sebastian Janikowski, then you just GHB yourself and forget all about
it. You can rip it from 65 and not worry about it.
Yeah, Janikowski. All right, man. Well, hey, let's get moving on it, man. We'll go. We touched on McPherson, and we talked about the Bengals. So Bengals Chiefs getting us started, man. Tell of two halves.
You had a Mahomes collapse in the second half of that. They put up 3 points in the entire second half of football after putting up 21 in the first half. And in my opinion, that play before the end of the first half, that dump off to Tyreek Hill and not throwing out of the back of the end zone and taking your 3 points, saving you a couple seconds on the clock, to me, that right there set the tone of the rest of the ball game. And I think that was the Chiefs' arrogance getting the best of them. I think their arrogance bit them in the butt because you could see at some points they got a little bit too flashy with their play call.
Mm-hmm. Well, and, dude, hats off to Eli Apple. What a play. Oh. Not a lot of guys handle Tyreek Hill one-on-one in the flat. And, from that distance, and he flat out, he rolled with him all the way through the coverage. They knew what they were doing. And Eli one-upped him and took it down. But, yeah, man, that's that arrogance. You're trying to go for the jugular. I get it, to go up 28-3.
Yeah.
But you end up missing that. And now that turns the game completely.
And I think it played into their head a little bit because the second to last game of the season, I think it was week 17 or week 18. It was one of the two, their most recent matchup. Mm-hmm. The Bengals were down 11 at halftime, similar to this matchup right here. So regardless, they're professionals. You got to have a quick memory where you just erase things and move on. Not everyone does. And I being down 11 or being up 11 to the same team that just beat you a couple weeks prior in the same scenario, I think there was a little bit of cold feet right there by Kansas City.
Yeah, and again, this Bengals team just keeps doing what they've done the entire run, which is they just don't know any better. You hear Zach Taylor getting interviewed after the game, and he's like, "We all knew, nobody else knew, but we knew. This is a special team that can do special stuff." Yeah, and I will say, man, that's something that I didn't expect, or maybe I hadn't noticed as much. But the adjustments that the Bengals made at halftime.
Yeah, they held Tyreek Hill to one catch in the second half.
Yeah, and well, the question in the NFL always was like, how do you stop all the Chiefs' weapons, right? Well, the Bengals figured it out. You do it with 8 DBs. They were rushing 3. They were
because 8. I was about to say, at the end of the day, it's not a Titans or a San Francisco 49ers where they're going to line up an I form and make you fill a gap and put a hat on a hat. They can run, a 2 down lineman, 2 linebackers, and 7 DBs and get away with it because that's what it takes to slow down Tyreek Hill. You got to put a bigger safety, Jesse Bates, kind of on Travis Kelce. I was a huge fan of the statement Joe Burrow made, whereas we don't see ourselves as underdogs. And I liked that road that he took with that because taking the underdog, the underdog mantra, the underdog stature, it's easy. It's a cop-out, right? If we lose, we lose. If we win, hey, we beat a top dog. Almost like what Will Anderson did when they were playing Cincinnati, the Bama defensive end. He said that we see ourselves as underdogs against Cincinnati. Granted, they beat them, but how can you be a top team in the country a top team in the NFL and have that mindset. Like, I don't know if it gives you extra motivation, but I like how Joe Burrow was like, no, our confidence is right here and it's this high. We see ourselves as the favorite every single matchup.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's obvious they just didn't get shook again. I mean, they took Kansas City's best shot. I mean, you 3 drives, 3 scores, and you could roll over and die. They just kept coming.
And right? Joe Burrow had 2 huge escaped sacks in the second half, both on Chris Jones, which is one of the more premier interior defensive linemen in the NFL, right? I think Joe Burrow had 5 rushes for 20 some odd yards, but one of those big ones came when he escaped that sack, and he was able to scamper for that first down. It kept their hope alive, because if they take that sack, if you're giving the ball back to Kansas City, who knows where the game plan goes if you give up that sack.
Well, and you know what? Talking about the sacks, the second half, dude, Sam Hubbard. What? I mean, this guy, he dropped into coverage.
Him and Trey Hendrickson both, man. They turned it up.
He dropped into coverage, 2 sacks, the back-to-back that made him end up, kicking the field goal to tie it. And just, again, kind of unheard of. And these guys really just stepped up and put Mahomes and the boys on their heels. It was like Mahomes early, mid-season, when they were having that little drought sort of thing, that early part. That's what it looked like.
And I think Mahomes, I think he gets a little bit too he gets too much of that savior mentality, like, I got to make a play. We saw early in the game and the last week, the divisional round, where he would throw the ball away if need be. He'd scamper, he'd make his reads downfield, he'd throw the ball away. The second half, Kansas City got to him to the point where he thought he needed to play hero ball, and he thought he needed to run around. I think they took a 17-yard sack at one point in the third quarter, and he fumbled, or it was in the fourth quarter, excuse me, and he fumbled it too. And he's lucky his O-lineman, I think it was Joe Tooney, that ended up jumping on it. But I think that's that lack of maturity that we haven't seen from – he's got all the arm talent in the world. He's even got a lot of leg talent, right? But I think that's that lack of maturity that we haven't seen yet from Patrick Mahomes, is to not everyone has to be Superman. Brady knew when to throw it away. Manning knew when to throw it away. Favre is probably one of the only few that you can look back at and say the man didn't know when to throw it away, right? Yeah. But I think we just haven't seen that mental maturity from Patrick Mahomes yet. And like you said, Cincinnati had him in a box that second half, like in a tight snuggie that second half.
And you know what's crazy is exactly right. He had that like savior mentality when he didn't need to. You were nursing a big lead. They were dropping, the safeties deep every time. The safeties stayed deep. And then you were basically running a shell through the middle part of the zone. And instead of just taking what they were giving to him, even like he did on the first drive, he really got Jerick McKinnon involved, out of the backfield, hitting some nice little passes. But he kept looking like he wanted to force it down. He wanted to go, and it just wouldn't take what was there. And one of those things that ends up happening with Kansas City that I don't think we, think about that much is when he's off like that, you're leaving a lot of clock, right? I mean, you had a lead. You needed to run clock.
Absolutely.
Incompletion after incompletion after incompletion. Your defense is just coming right back out on the field.
Well, I was going to say, just watching the Miami Hurricanes games last year, when you go out onto the field and your defense was just on the field for 11 plays, 4-minute drive, 5-minute drive, and then you come out and you give them 60 seconds worth of rest, it's inevitable you see a defensive collapse. And that's a lot of what we saw. You saw Joe Mixon ripping off some big runs that last drive. He had 21 rushes for 88 yards. He did majority of his damage actually on just that last drive before McPherson kicked that extra point for the win, right? I think he had a 16-yard gain. He had one that he probably could have scored on if he hadn't tripped over his O-lineman that got him in field goal range. And that's what they did is Mahomes and them kept throwing it when they didn't need to. He didn't take what was given. Cincinnati ran a lot of that cover 2 deep shell where they sit those safeties over the top and it's like bend but don't break. And Travis Kelce is one of the best in the league at getting underneath coverages and sitting down in a zone, right? And for whatever reason, the second half anyway, I don't know why. I'm throwing it to him every single play if you're giving that to me, because Travis Kelce can make something out of nothing like that.
Yeah. And instead it was the Bengals taking advantage of that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
like the little screen to Shamar J. Pirine.
Oh, yeah.
And Pirine bust one out.
35-yard touchdown run, a 34-yard touchdown run.
Yeah, I love that about these playoffs, man. I always feel like anytime it comes around to playoff football, there's one or two guys that, unless you were a big fan of the team, you didn't really know,
Right.
I mean, a lot of us, the Patriots a couple of years ago with James White, coming out of nowhere and then all of a sudden just becoming, stud.
Well, in their big comeback in the Falcons in the Super Bowl, I think he had 4 touchdowns that game.
Yeah. But, you look at Edwards-Helaire. Clyde Edwards-Helaire only carries the ball 6 times, right?
Yeah.
We see there. What do we got? Samar J. Pirine having the 3rd longest catch of the game, 41-yarder, man. And
hey, I'll tell you, when Joe Mixon was out with some injuries, a tribute to this, Samar J. Pirine does damage in the short passing game. He ripped off that screenplay for 41 yards for a touchdown, and that kid hit the nail on the head. Whoever tweeted that. That was a big turning point for Cincinnati to grab some momentum, in Arrowhead Stadium.
Yeah. I mentioned how the defense made adjustments in the second half, dropping back the 8, rushing 3. I was watching, I think it was Baldinger. I love watching Brian Baldinger break things down.
Mm-hmm.
And he replayed the touchdown that gave him the tie. Well, put him down by 2 right before the 2-point conversion, right?
Yeah.
And they literally lined up and ran the exact same play. On the very first play, Burrow read it wrong, and Burrow tried to go short, and Chase was going back shoulder fade. Yeah. They literally came back in the huddle, called it right back up. Like, legit, you could almost see, my bad, I misread it. Let's do this again.
Let's run it back.
And right there, back shoulder fade, touchdown, done. I mean, that's confidence. That's knowing you have a better playmaker and you can make the throw. That's the kind of stuff that you generally don't see out of second-year quarterbacks and rookie wideouts.
No, I was about to say it's knowing what you can do when you make a misread. It's the maturity in him to say, you know what, that's my bad. I'm going to hit it this time, right? And it's knowing his personnel. I don't think there's very many corners in the league that can play, even at this age, Jamar Chase one-on-one. No. I think you almost always have to shadow a safety over top or give him some sort of extra look. And like you said, he said, hey, my bad, run it back, and hit Jamar Chase with that back shoulder touchdown.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll play chicken little here with this, right? Like, let's go, the sky is falling, because other takes that you read going around. I mean, maybe it's early, but have we really seen the biggest part of this Kansas City dynasty? I mean, is it done? I mean, again, that sounds drastic to say, but we see this a lot, where you see teams have this 3 or 4 year run where they're there, and then it's fade back to the other point.
Well, I think a lot of it, and I like this, the 18-point comeback from the Bengals is the second largest. I think 24 points is the largest road comeback in NFL history. And, I mean, look at the odds right there. 4 in 163 all time when trailing by 18. Not only that, but you did it with a rookie receiver as your number one option.
Yeah.
You did it with a quarterback who's in his 3rd year, but missed his whole 2nd year of starting with an ACL injury. I mean, unless this is all attributed to the LSU connection that they had, they haven't. I mean, one season together on a professional football field is not a whole lot of time.
No.
And to do what they've done in that time span, like I said, they had a rapport from LSU, 4 in 163, and now they are one of those 4 out of 167 total games played.
It's amazing to really see that, man.
Yeah.
And to see the way that they put that together.
But to go back to your hit on the Chiefs dynasty, to be honest with you, unless they, I don't know how you I don't know how you fix much of what they got going on. Offensively, they're about as talented as you get, right? What do? You go get another number one wide receiver. Maybe you get you a running back. But defensively has been their weak point since day one, in my opinion. They have two young linebackers in Willie Gay and Nick Bolton. Willie Gay out of Mississippi State, Nick Bolton out of Missouri. Two young, talented linebackers. In my opinion, they don't have a number one corner. Tyrann Mathieu, I think, is a huge vocal point when it comes to the leadership of that defense, the signal caller. But you're right. We see these teams have these 3 or 4 year hits, and then it's like, are we going to see a fizzle out? Like of this Kansas City Chiefs team in general.
Yeah, I saw this kind of up close with Andy Reid before. I mean, I won't say anything near that the Eagles were as dominant as the Chiefs have been, but it seems like Reid's message has a shelf life, right?
Yeah.
He can respond and they'll come to it for a little bit. But then it starts to kind of maybe fade away from that. But we'll see. I mean, it's going to take free agency or some injuries and things like that to really do it in. It's just interesting to think, is this a changing of the guard?
Well, the big thing is you think about financially, how far can they stretch, right? They have a lot of money locked up in Patrick Mahomes. Where is Travis Kelce going to fit in the next 2 years or so? Where's Tyreek Hill going to fit in the next couple of years? How do you keep Orlando Brown? How do you keep Joe Thuney? Like, there's a lot of money. There's going to have to be down the road some restructuring. I just don't think you can keep that much elite talent and not spread the wealth out somewhere else,
Yeah. Well, it looked like last year's failure was the offensive line for KC, right? I mean, just Tampa just manhandled them.
Oh, yeah.
So they go out and they throw money at the line, right? And they kind of tighten that up. And like you said, there's only so much money you can throw around.
Well, especially when you got a guy like Patrick Mahomes, who is, now that Brady's gone, he's easily a top 3 talent in the league at the quarterback position. I mean, that's where your money's invested in. That's where your future's invested in.
Yeah, it's and Jamar Chase really is just. I mean, the guy took a year off of football, right? I mean, he took the COVID year completely off, and people questioned what he was going to be. And then I remember again in training camp, riding him hard. He was dropping everything that was thrown his way. He's a physical freak, and that's not just. I mean, I think the last time I saw a rookie wide receiver that I thought looked this dominant as far as physical was probably Julio Jones in his first year. Julio Jones just cut in the way that he was, taller, faster, stronger. He can beat a DB. He can take him to the back corner. He can outrun him to the post. There's just so many things that can be done there. And then, unsung guys. We can't forget underneath that, man, you still got T. Higgins. T. Higgins going over 100 yards receiving in that game.
Had some pivotal catches too. Had a fourth down catch coming across the middle, holding onto the football. Had some big plays that game when they counted.
Yeah. So, great to see those all together. And then, I'll wrap it up with it couldn't have been any better except for the post game, right? Can we just call it what it is? Like, Joe Burrow looks like if Macaulay Culkin's character in Home Alone grew up, right? Like, that's what Kevin would look like later in life. And I love the diamond necklace. Boy, talk about not reading the room.
The man said, "I make too much money for this to be fake." You can tell, like, he doesn't hold anything back. He's not afraid to say what he thinks need to be said, obviously with an appropriate taste to it. And back to that graphic that Isaac just put up there. Shout out to T. Higgins, man. Oak Ridge, Tennessee product, man. Got to give a little where it's due to T. Higgins. Yeah, there he is.
And there you go. Big time player making big time plays. That's what happens. And he was doing this prior to Jamar Chase, right? So that's where you get quietly underneath that 1-2.
And I think he's the receiver a lot of teams are looking for and needing. He's 6'5". He's over 200 pounds. He catches away from his body. He doesn't wait for the ball to get to his chest. I mean, some of the crossing routes that he made some catches on late in that game, It was just all hand strength, and it was will to want to beat the DB for the football. That's all it was. Will to want to win.
Yeah. And I mean, for all the things we talk about, the embarrassment of riches that Kansas City has on the offensive side, Cincinnati's right there with them. I mean, you still got Taj Boyd. Uzama has been playing big. I think, it looks like he's going to be healthy.
They say there's a little speculation. It's an MCL sprain from the last report that I read. They don't think he's going to be able to go for the Super Bowl.
Okay.
I think there's still some optimism that maybe, but from the looks of it, it doesn't look like it right now from just the reports that are coming out that he's going to be ready to give everything he can for the Super Bowl.
And I'll give my final stamp on this, and you and I talked a lot about it again 2 weeks ago. For everybody who says that the overtime rules are unfair, Cincinnati didn't have a problem with it.
Because they won in regulation.
You make a stop, and you get the ball back.
Look,
it's all phases of the game.
I've always been a big proponent. If you don't like the overtime rules, don't let it get to overtime, right?
Yeah.
If I'm afraid that you got Pat Mahomes on the other side of the field, right, on the other sideline. If I'm afraid he's going to get the coin toss, which is obviously a 50-50 flip, and he's going to go down and win it in one drive, I'm going to make sure we don't get that point in the equation where he gets the ball one time, he goes down and wins it. Win it in regulation.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Let's ride on your boy T. Higgins again. So 17 games. So technically now with the playoffs, he put together one full season. 88 catches, 1,300 yards, and 6 touchdowns.
Yep. And I tell you, man, catching the ball away from your body is so much harder than what people give it credit for. Everyone wants to wait for the ball to come to them. They'll bring their body into it. T. Higgins does what a lot of players don't do in the NFL, and that's go get it with their hands.
Yeah.
And that may be attributed to Aaron Rodgers throwing 90-mile-an-hour fastballs. But the way he does it, the way he goes and gets those 88 catches, man, it's all physical all the time with him.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? The last guy I remember that stuck out to me like that was Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry was a guy that would just go snatch the ball.
Yep. Absolutely.
And just he was another guy that was good for 100+ catches a year.
Yep.
And I just think T. Higgins is a guy who's really benefiting from what's there. Who knows what this whole little Bengals run's going to be? Is it going to be the Icky Woods, Boomer Esiason Bengals? Who knows? But it's fun to watch, and that's one end of the story that's going to be good. With that, let's flip over, man. The second part of this story comes down to San Francisco 49ers and the Rams. Let's another game comes down to one possession. Another game that I want to say is the tale of two halves. Not really, maybe.
I mean, there was on the last 9 minutes really, which was pretty pivotal when you have a 17-17 ball game. The last 9, or excuse me, you had a 17-7 ball game. The last 9 minutes is extremely pivotal, and you definitely did not see the best of Jimmy Garoppolo. 16 for 30, 230-ish yards, 2 touchdowns. What should have been 2 interceptions because Jalen Ramsey dropped the ball almost like Jaquiski Tartt did when he dropped an interception that could have turned the whole game over.
Yeah.
But I think Jimmy G had an 87-ish rating. There was nothing out there. Yeah, there's the trade partner. That's the Bleacher Report one that I saw earlier today. There's nothing out there that points to Jimmy G for me for any. I mean, unless you just have a 2000 Ravens defense, that can literally carry Trent Dilfer to the Super Bowl. I think he's a little bit better than what Trent Dilfer was. I think he can be better than what Trent Dilfer was. But unless you have a defense like that to back up a quarterback like Jimmy G, I mean, he's not going to give you 24+ points a game. He's not going to give you outstanding. He's a winner. He's 6-0 all time against Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs. 4-0 all time against Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs. Like he wins football games, but I don't think he's what the Giants are going to want long term. I mean, they drafted Trey Lance.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I think the big storyline, if we wrap this all up in this, is, there was one quarterback in this game that you didn't want to throw the ball 30 times. And,
Yes.
and that guy is Jimmy G. When Stafford throws it 45, you're okay with that.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Jimmy G throws it 30 times. You're getting into dicey territory.
Yep.
But, man, you kind of hit the nail on the head. You mentioned how his performance went down in the last 9 or 10 minutes. I think, and I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, Deebo Samuel, who was almost, you had 282 yards of total offense.
Yeah.
Over 100 of that was Deebo.
Yeah.
His last touch in that game came with 10-plus minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
Your best playmaker, half of your offense, doesn't even touch the ball.
Led the league in all-purpose yards. And you can't give them a toss play. You can't give them a screen play. All you have to do, you don't have to run them on a deep route, right? You don't have to run them on a deep post. You don't have to run them on a streak. You can literally give him the ball 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and chances are he's going to turn it into positive yards and move the sticks. That's how talented he is. And the guy is built like a moose.
Yeah.
He runs like a running back. He does not run like a typical receiver. So with him not eluding contact and him searching for it, it's even grounds for him gaining more yards than what you probably thought he would.
Yeah, and again, I get critical because I'm watching every coordinator here and there who's tied to anything. And, the name McDaniel, the offensive coordinator for San Francisco, keeps rearing his head from the Senior Bowl looking like it almost might be a done deal to come to Miami.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big things was, he'll find a way to get Jalen Waddle involved the way that we want him involved. Okay, again, NFC Championship game, tight ball game, and you can't manufacture a way to put the ball in Deebo's hands with 10 minutes. I don't get that, man.
I don't understand how, including the regular season and postseason, you get the ball in this guy's hands enough to lead the league in all-purpose total yards. Mm-hmm. But in the biggest game of your season thus far, not including the Super Bowl, obviously, because you didn't get there, the biggest game of your season thus far, you can't find one opportunity in 10 minutes to get the ball in his hands. To me, that's a little worrisome.
It is. And, I mean, you look at it, this was a game that was won by the trenches.
Yes.
It was hard-nosed the whole way through. But San Francisco, if we were asked to give them an identity, which I think we probably covered at some point during this whole run through the playoffs, right, is they're a run-first team. They were held to 50 yards, 20 carries for 50 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that when, Aaron Donald shows up, he's a game changer, but that's more than just Aaron Donald. That front, that front four, the front seven, they really just played tremendous in that position.
They did, man. Reeder filled the gaps really well. One of the Rams linebackers. Ashawn Robinson was a gap monster in the interior defensive line. But if you look at the Rams' last 3 or 4 matchups against San Francisco, they got dominated in the trenches. I think Deebo Samuel ran wild on them.
Mm-hmm.
Their 2 meetings earlier this year, their actual divisional meetings earlier this year. For me, 11 carries for Elijah Mitchell, averaging less than 2 yards a carry. Then you got Deebo Samuel only touching the ball in the backfield 7 times for 28 yards, about 4 yards a carry. To me, it doesn't make sense. When your MO is live or die by the run, I mean, eventually you're going to fatigue a front 7, right? And if you fatigue a front 7, your DBs look only as good as your front 7 pass rush, right? If you can't get to the quarterback and he's eating play action off of you, it opens up so many more avenues offensively when the run game is structured and it's successful.
So I got to read this one. I see this tweet coming up. Jimmy G's current trade value similar to Carson Wentz. Wow. But I guess that makes sense. Coming off a year in which Wentz threw 16 touchdowns, 15 INTs, he's still got a conditional second that turned into a first. The other one that I saw pop up there before this on the screen was, and I think it's interesting, is does Garoppolo succeed Tom Brady, just not where we thought he would? right?
Yeah.
Not in New England.
No. No.
He didn't become the successor there. But does he with Tampa? I mean, that's a team that's got pieces around it that if you keep them together, Fournette's a free agent. I think so's Godwin. But if you keep those pieces around them, if it's not a mass exodus when Tom leaves, then Jimmy G might fit in there well.
That, or I could see Pittsburgh being a home for him.
Yeah.
Used to the cold weather, is not an issue. Has a heck of a running back in Najee Harris. Between Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool, you've got a young tight end in Pat Freiermuth.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side of the football, you got the best pass rusher in football.
Yeah.
You have a competent secondary and you have a competent set of linebackers. If I'm Pittsburgh, I'm kind of throwing my chips in for something of that, because with how good their defense is or has been, you don't need someone to throw the ball 30 times a game,
Yeah. Well, he could end up filling that role of kind of the Fitzpatrick near the end of his career.
Yeah.
As Jimmy G's role at this point may just be stopgap. And that's
Yeah.
it. You get the best situation you can.
Yep.
Because, everything that I see out of Pittsburgh, at least my friends who are Steeler fans are trying to draw their fantasy together and drafting Kenny Pickett straight out of the University of Pitt. And, if so, you're going to need a bridge. And Jimmy G's that guy. In the world of football, and we delved into it earlier, I don't even know if I'm going to get into this stuff again on the back end, but the NFL can be a nasty place, as we know, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Some filthy stuff. Very refreshing to see Jimmy G standing up at the presser saying, you know what? I talked to John, speaking about John Lynch, seems like a hell of a guy, straightforward. Hey, we knew what the situation was. Yeah. As he said it, he knew this is Lance's team. So we're working on trying to get me somewhere that's going to be a contender. And that's refreshing.
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, knowing that he's probably on his way out anyway, he could have been a little bratty prick about it if he really wanted to. Sure. He could have made things difficult. He could have said things that he probably shouldn't have said. But at the end of the day, that professionalism that he's displaying up there is going to be a reflection of the team down the road, right? We don't want Antonio Browns at the pressers anymore. They want someone who's going to hold themselves accountable, who is going to be professional, like he's doing with John Lynch right now. And like you said, I hold Jimmy G to high regards for that. I do. Sure. I think that was about as mature as you can be with what he was talking about.
Yeah. Back to the game, it was something just, going over it. I felt like in the game I didn't hear the name a lot, but George Kittle only coming away with 2 catches. I mean, 1 for a touchdown, but Kittle's kind of, he goes the Kelsey route, I mean, like when San Francisco's rolling, Kittle's catching balls. Yeah.
Brandon Ayuk was targeted 8 times, had 4 catches for, I think, like just under 70 yards. Mm-hmm. In a game where you're targeting Brandon Ayuk more than George Kittle, and George Kittle's a matchup nightmare. He's too fast for a linebacker. He's too big for a safety, or unless you have Taylor Mays running around out there, he's too big for a safety or corner, right? He uses his body. He kind of boxes out a little bit. Like we alluded to with the Deebo Samuel and not getting Deebo involved when it mattered, they didn't get George Kittle involved at all. not when it mattered, but at all.
So how much of that goes to Jalen Ramsey, right? Because, I mean, Jalen Ramsey was kind of all over the place, I felt like. But I saw him locked on Kittle a couple of times.
Yeah.
And then, in that ending up the game, it seemed like Ramsey was locking down, on Deebo as well. Oh, well, there we go. Look.
This tweet right here is why I'm excited for this matchup. Because you could see in the game, Jalen Ramsey got mouthy with Robbie Gould when he kicked a field goal early in the game, right? Mm-hmm. And this is a Super Bowl. Jalen Ramsey hasn't been to one yet, right? He tried with Jacksonville, what was it, 2017 or 2016? Yeah. When they had that big run, got beat by New England. This guy's going to be all mouth and all ready to play when it comes time for the Super Bowl, not next Sunday, but the next.
Yeah, I mean, that's impressive. I didn't realize that. I mean, 31 snaps and 2 targets.
Golly, man.
I mean, that's,
If you want the definition of lockdown, that's it right there. That's the definition of a corner. You can either roam him and you can put him at the nickel, or you can put him on one side of the field. anyone that's producing a fraction of those numbers in that tweet right there, golly, man.
That's crazy. Well, and then again, you're now pairing that with, quite possibly, I would say since Warren Sapp in his prime, and probably Aaron Donald up front. You haven't seen a defensive lineman who can take over a game the way that he can, and then you back that with a guy like Ramsey who can make sure that the quarterback's going to hold the ball a little bit longer. And that's just a recipe, man. That's a nightmare recipe.
Yeah, I don't think J.J. Watt was super dominant in some of his early days with Houston. Is probably one of the more relevant ones that I can think of.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, besides Warren Sapp, Reggie White, there's not a lot. And the thing about Aaron Donald is he does it from the 3 technique. He does it from the outside. You can almost split him out wide. He does it besides lining up as a linebacker. He does it from every position on that defensive line, interior, off the edge. I mean, and the guy's not huge either. That was one of the knocks on him coming out of Pittsburgh was his size. I think he's just over 6 foot, maybe 6 foot-ish, 6'1". Coming out of Pittsburgh, I think he was 270, 280. For what they wanted him to do, rush the passer, the size didn't just add up. And the guy is an absolute home wrecker in the backfield. Absolute home wrecker, man. And if you watch his motor, his demeanor doesn't change. His facial expressions don't change, but his motor stays high the entire time, man.
Look, and we're talking about that. And I think, I'll touch on a little bit on the offensive side too, but on the defensive side of the ball, they brought in some crafty, hungry veterans, right? I mean, we haven't even really talked about Von Miller. And this is Von Miller not having to be the guy. Von Miller just gets to be a piece, right? And he's not the Von Miller he was in Denver, but, still unbelievable. But the one that caught my eye, man, Eric Weddle. Eric Weddle 4 weeks ago was hanging out like you and me talking about this stuff.
Probably in Cabo sipping margaritas.
Right. And he leads them in tackles in the NFC Championship game with 9 tackles.
To be fair to Weddle, even coming out of Utah, the guy always had a nose for the football.
Yeah.
You never had to worry about him not being where he was supposed to be on the field, and missing a tackle. That it's not super surprising. That leading the team in tackles is surprising, but his productivity isn't as surprising as if we saw Reggie Nelson come out of retirement, the old Bengals safety.
Oh yeah.
It's not, but still, to lead the team in tackles is a completely different number because you have some tackling machines on that team.
Yeah. Well, people talk about gain speed and getting back after an injury. Like, literally, Weddle sat at home the entire season.
Yeah.
And in playoffs, plug and play.
Yeah.
Just that.
Literally did not miss a beat. Plugged and played.
Just put him in.
Taylor Rapp went out. I think he's out with injury. And there wasn't, hey, let's give Weddle a snap count. Let's make sure he knows the plays, he knows the coverages. They said, hey, we know your football intellect is high enough. Let's get you in there and let's get you our signal caller on the defense. And I think he's even heading the charge vocally when it comes to calling things on the field too. Yeah. Which is even more impressive.
It's just a great story from that side of it. And then, if we turn around and look at the offensive side, this was the Rams being the Rams. I don't know how I missed it somewhere along the lines, but all of a sudden Cooper Kupp is just the most dominant receiver in all of football. Yep. I mean, maybe it's just the mixture of putting Stafford in with him too. I mean, Cooper Kupp was even putting up numbers when Goff was there.
Yeah, and that says a lot.
This Cooper Kupp is, 11 catches, 142 yards, 2 touchdowns, 14 targets, 11 catches. I mean, Jesus.
To be honest with you, I love Cooper Kupp so much, A, because of his toughness, B, because the guy never complains. He could touch the ball 2 times in a game, and he's still going to be the same Cooper Kupp as he was touching the ball 14 times in a game. The guy is an absolute route technician. Absolute route technician. He can beat you just as easy on a post route as he can an inside dig, a 3-yard dig route. Like, the guy is that good. He could make you miss in a phone booth. He's that good with his feet. And then, I mean, to say people forgot about Odell Beckham, which they kind of did, we knew he was a talent, right? His name kind of got on the script with the little one-handed catch against against Dallas or the Giant, or it was against Dallas, I believe. 11 targets, 9 receptions, 113 yards, averaging 12.6 yards a catch. I mean, Odell Beckham, I think him and Stafford, they're starting to build a strong rapport. And we've already seen Stafford and Cooper Kupp's rapport. It's out of this world, right? Probably the best tandem in football right now is Kupp and Stafford. Yeah. Odell Beckham Jr. is starting to gain some respect from Stafford when it comes to the comfortability of him throwing the football to him.
Yeah. And, the little pieces that they made the adjustments with, right? I mean, I won't call, Beckham little, but, I mean, It was a move that when it was made, you were like, well, was he done? You didn't know what you had coming out of Cleveland. Yeah. Underneath it all, one guy that I've liked since the beginning of the year, and it's not super flash, but Sony Michel. Yes. Sony Michel is a great, he's a great compliment to Cam Akers.
Yeah.
And allows you a back out of the backfield who can catch the ball.
Yep.
Having those guys are, it's just invaluable. Again, when you've got the Cooper Kupps and the Odell Beckham that are setting it up on the outsides.
Yep.
They're tough to defend.
And to kind of piggyback with what you said with Odell Beckham, with the little bit of worry, there is a drama stigma that has followed him for quite some time. If he doesn't get the ball, he kicks kicking nets. You know what I mean? He throws his helmet. There is a diva side to Odell Beckham, and then when you get him in LA with the LA atmosphere and the ego that comes with playing in Los Angeles, you don't know how it works. But I think with the leaders on that team, Stafford's been in the league for 13 years. Aaron Donald's been in the league. He's a staple in the league. Von Miller's been in the league. He's a staple in the league. I think that Sean McVay and those guys, this is the best thing when everyone has the same view, and it's to win, right? It's not about stats. It's not about touchdowns. It's, hey, at the end of the day, when you come line up on the opposite side of Cooper Kupp, there's probably a 70% chance that it's going to Cooper Kupp. You have the other 30, right? For him to be able to suck that up and not throw the viral hissy fits that we've seen from him before, that's a bigger step for me for Odell Beckham than it is him producing on the football field.
No, they said it all along, right? Winning cures a lot of L's, right? I think you get mute. There you go. But winning cures a lot of L's, man.
Yeah.
But you got to look. Those two receivers ate up 25 of the 45 attempts.
Yeah.
Right. And 20 of the 31 receptions. Right. Went to those two guys.
Yeah.
So I think you said it early on. You did, and it's become very obvious that Stafford he's found that place.
Yeah.
Like getting that first playoff victory was on the back, but he settled in to just make him plays.
I think the Super Bowl lights will be bright. Usually it's the first quarter and a half. There's some jitters. There'll probably be some overthrows. There'll be throws that don't need to be thrown, right? But I think you're going to see Stafford set into some comfort really soon. And like you said, like you alluded to, he got his feet wet with that first playoff win. Then they beat a divisional opponent, San Francisco, for the NFC Championship. And I think he's grown obviously with Cooper Kupp. Now he's growing with Odell Beckham Jr. He's got two of the best options you can have in football on either side of the field. And then you have that kind of that dual-headed monster in Cam Akers and Sony Michel. I mean, there's a huge recipe for success with Matthew Stafford coming into the Super Bowl.
Well, and you see it. I mean, they were 11 of 18 on third down. 11
That's big. 18. That's big.
That's where you end up grinding this out. That's how you end up with almost 10 more minutes of possession time, right? Yeah. You almost have a whole quarter's worth of possession over the Niners.
Yeah.
And again, you possess it, you keep converting. that lets guys like Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald and Von Miller and all those guys get the rest they need to come back out and just go strong.
Yep, and St. Louis. I mean, not St. Louis. I keep saying St. Louis.
Yeah.
The Rams. The Ram. I'm just going to call them the Rams from now on. The Rams being able to cap off the back end of that fourth quarter like they did, with getting back in striking distance, it was able to let Von Miller and Aaron Donald pin their ears back and just go after Jimmy G. There was no more playing run gaps. You know, there wasn't anyone dropping really in coverage. It was just, hey, you guys tuck those ears and go get him. You know what I mean? Go get me the football. And they rattled Jimmy that back 9 or 10 minutes of that fourth quarter. I mean, he was in shambles back there. And then you have the final play of the game that led to that interception. I mean, he was getting antsy. Jimmy G was getting antsy back there in that pocket.
Yeah. Oh, look at this. The youngest matchup. Man, I feel old. Man, I think I'm older than both coaches that are going into the Super Bowl.
Sean McVay got his first start as the Rams head coach when he was 31 years old.
Wow.
He was my age when he was the head coach of the and there's been a tree from that Sean McVay line. Matt LaFleur has been one of them. There's been a myriad of coaches that have come down under his ranks, 36 and 38 years old, man.
And that's crazy. You know, an interesting thing with the Rams that I was looking into is since McVay's been there, right? Everybody kind of looks at this team as like an old mercenary, right? You went out and got the old vets, and they're going to make one last run at this thing. But what they don't realize is underneath it all, I read somewhere that since Sean McVay has taken over as coach of the Rams and working with the general manager that they have in place there now, the Rams have more draft picks than any other team in the NFL. Yeah. They said people just don't recognize it because they're not all ones.
Right. Yeah, they're thirds, they're fourths, they're fifths. Yeah.
And how many times do we hear legitimately your first round and your second round are for the splash?
Yeah.
You win championships in football games in those middle rounds. That's where coaches will toss out a 2 to bring in a 4 and a 6.
And to allude to that, they have their splash players. They have the Cooper Kupp. They have the Odell. Cam Akers is going to come along. They have Matthew Stafford. They have Aaron Donald. They have Jalen Ramsey. So now they can almost draft stress-free in a sense because there's not many star holes they need to fill when it comes to those first 2 rounds of football.
Yeah. I mean, look at that. Sean McVay in 5 years. 4 playoff appearances, 3 NFC West titles, 2 NFL championship games. Yeah, and again, I'm going to give the guy an extra nod that one of those was with Jared Goff. I mean, we can't let that just sit there.
And it was honestly one of the worst Super. What was it, 13-10, or it was against New England?
So bad.
Wasn't it 13-10 or 13-6 something?
Hey, that game was the reason Flores got hired in Miami.
It was.
Because they said Flores' defense shut down McVay.
Yeah,
and that's what brought him.
And to be fair, if at that point in time you had substituted Goff for Stafford, I don't know if not Manning. I don't know if Brady comes away with that Super Bowl win with 13 points. No. And next year, Matthew Stafford gets back Robert Woods, so you're gonna have 3 areas of the field that you have to have. Cooper Kupp can break it off at any time. Robert Woods is ridiculously underrated underneath. One of the best slot receivers and blocking receivers in the league. And then you have Odell Beckham, who was just on a 1-year friendly deal this year. He may sign another, 2-year friendly deal to come back and compete for another Super Bowl again.
Whoa, hold up. Zach Taylor is part of that coaching tree?
Yeah, he was one I couldn't think of. Yeah.
Wow. There's so many great storylines in this Super Bowl that I'm really just geeking out for it. I really am. If you've got that coming off the same tree, the 2 youngest coaches, and you literally have, it's a tale of 2 sides.
Yeah.
The young gunslinger, right, who's coming into the league knowing no better, and the vet who's finally got a chance. Like, I do, and I will legitimately plant my flag that if Matthew Stafford wins the Super Bowl, you got to start talking about him among, or if not above, the ranks of the Aaron Rodgers.
I think that was my point last week, is that
Yeah.
besides the MVPs, really, which in Detroit, I don't think anyone wins MVPs.
How can you?
but besides the MVPs, if you want to take that out of equation, which people won't because it's still an accolade you have to account for, if you add a Super Bowl to whether it's 13 years in or not, it's been 11 since Rodgers' last Super Bowl.
Yeah.
If you add that Super Bowl into Matthew Stafford's numbers, statistically, season-wise, and I think he's 3 or 4 years behind Aaron Rodgers anyway, the numbers, I mean, that's going to be a comparable argument because Stafford's career is not done, and Aaron Rodgers is maybe getting to that home stretch of his career. Mentally, who knows if he's as invested as it was before. I mean, to me anyway, that's a valid argument if he wins the Super Bowl.
And I think these teams look so similar on different sides. The two big receivers, the running backs are going to multitude in and out. If you're going to go check box, the one place that we know Cincinnati absolutely dominates is the kicker. And again, in games that have been this close throughout the postseason, knowing it's crunch time to kick, McPherson, Gay's a good kicker. He's been around for a while. That's awesome. Yeah. But you've got to have the utmost confidence knowing you've got a guy like that kicking.
I'll tell you this. I will ride with the guy any day of the week when before you go out to beat the number 1 seed in the AFC on their home field, you say, hey, guys, you ready to go to the AFC Championship game? And then you boot it through the uprights. I'll ride with that dude any day of the week.
5 game winners, 12 for 12 in the playoffs. That's the stuff that legends are made of, and the kid's a rookie.
The proof's in the pudding, man. You can't. The numbers are there. 12 for, like you said, 12 for 12, five game winners this season. The proof's in the pudding. You can't deny numbers, right? And for those numbers, they're not inflated numbers. It's not like he kicked 1,000 times, and those numbers are pretty solid for what we saw out of a rookie kicker in the postseason too.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty amazing. Where did he go to school? You're
Florida. Florida. He's a UF guy. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, look at that, the Florida boy.
He's a Florida Gator, man.
So if we run down the storylines of this, right? You've got old vet, gunslinger. Yeah. Again, I'm gonna wrap it around to Miami. Dan Marino's one appearance. He had to run into Joe Montana and the Niners.
What are you going to do? You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah, winning that game. But you've got, different little story with Matt Stafford, who, again, one of the good guys. I mean, I think this Rams team is filled with people that I think easily, even your average football fan, especially those that go deeper, would say it's a team of solid. Cooper Kupp is from what anybody can tell, just a great guy. Matt Stafford, same way. You've got guys there that it would be nice to see them get that ring. On the other side, you could easily paint the Cincinnati Bengals as the evil empire. In the sense of the young, cocky, brash, arrogant, right? I mean, not what, 20 – yeah, so in the 2020 season, I thought Brian Flores was going to fight the entire Cincinnati Bengals team. They were taking cheap shots during a meaningless game. Yeah. And, but that's always been Cincinnati's MO, is they've been that sort of rough and tumble bad guy. And,
well, there was a quote a long time ago. It was a joke that the Cincinnati Bengals were comparable. They called them jail stripes or something. The Bengals, they called them jail stripes, and I don't think they've carried that same stigma with them, but they are kind of the little arrogant bad boys. You know what I mean? The ones that flip their hair, kind of the little gym pricks.
Mike Hilton talks a ton of shit on the other side.
Oh man! Did you see Eli Apple tweeting Tyreek Hill?
Oh yeah.
He told Tyreek Hill and Mecole Hardman. He said, I'll send y'all some tickets to the Super Bowl on me so you can come watch.
Yeah, so Eli Apple, those guys, I mean, they've got that edge. And, the Rams just seem to be like the professional that's just going to do the job that's there to go. But, I mean, man, if it comes down to it in crunch time, I don't think I could take, Matt Stafford's got to have my money on that. Burrow's made big plays, and he's a lot of heart. Yeah. Stafford's just seen it all. You look back, the Cooper Kupp on the zero blitz the game before last. Those are just things that Stafford just sees. If you come at him, you're going to pay a price. And, I think you've got guys putting their egos in check. A big one is Odell. Who knew? Right? Aaron Donald leads that team with an iron fist, I think, and does it by example.
Yes.
And then look, man, how many, we went all of these years of Super Bowls with never having a team have a Super Bowl in their home stadium, and now it's back-to-back years.
2 back-to-back. So obviously no team before Tampa Bay had ever won it in their home stadium. Now, like you said, we've got 2 back-to-back with the potential to win back-to-back in their home stadiums.
It's crazy.
Like you said, you look at Stafford, and I don't think there's a way you can hate the guy. Like, even when Detroit was as bad as they were, the guy would limp onto the field with his foot facing backwards if he had to be able to try to win a football game. I don't think there's any way that unless you're a Cardinals fan, a Seahawks fan, or a Niners fan, I don't think there's a way that most people can root against Matthew Stafford. He's left every drop of blood that has probably coursed through his body at one point on a yard line on a football field, right? To me, I don't think he's going to ride off in the wind after he gets this win. I think he's going to be hungry for more, but it's scary because these Cincinnati Bengals are getting a taste of this at such a young age. Stafford's 13 years in and just now getting a taste of it. Von Miller didn't get a taste of it until he was like 8 years in, 9 years in. Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd's even young too. I think he's only 5 to 6 years in.
Yeah.
Jesse Bates is a young guy. Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson are both young guys. You've got a lot of fresh meat on that football team that's about to get a taste of this premium, type A blood. And dude, it's going to be exciting because that taste is never going to be rinsed out until they win it,
Yeah. Well, it's funny too, is like not knowing what you don't know. Like we said, Stafford, Odell, they're probably going to be a little puckered up come kickoff time because it's the Super Bowl. Yeah. I don't think anybody on Cincinnati is going to feel that.
Well, and with the same attitude they've been running with the entire time is we're not even supposed to be here. You know what I mean? I know the confidence it exudes now when it's out in the open with Joe Burrow. The unless you're a Bengals fan or a wild bettor, there's no one out there that could have said Cincinnati would be here right now. And they have played every game up until this point with absolutely nothing to lose. And it's not like they've played with reckless abandonment, but they've played to their potential, and in my opinion, even past it. Like we know Joe Burrow is going to be a big time quarterback, right? We know Jamar Chase is going to be a big time receiver. We know T. Higgins has a ton of potential. Joe Mixon has a ton of potential. But to me, even those words right there, those descriptive words to describe those guys have superseded those expectations in these playoffs.
Yeah. And I'll play again the rolling it all out. I kind of take for granted Stafford isn't done yet. Stafford's got a couple of years left in him. Yeah. We could be, I like playing the fairy tale rolling it out. We could be seeing that John Elway late in life make your mark, right?
Oh, yeah.
Elway was on his way out when Terrell Davis and the boys came and gave him a running game.
And Rod Smith and Shannon Sharp. I mean, when he got some offensive weapons in there, I think that's a great point. I think that especially win or lose, Stafford's there, right? Mm-hmm. It's his void isn't going to be fulfilled because he knows he can get there now, especially with the Rams. If he wins it, I still don't see him because that taste, man, you're only 13 years in. If you put up 12 years in Detroit, you can put up 20 more years in LA,
Well, I mean, dude, that's the thing. It becomes fun again. Stafford always struck me as the kind of guy that, look, there's professionals and yeah, they're playing a kid's game and everybody has fun, but he looked like that guy that thrived on the competitiveness,
Yep.
the way Phillip Rivers did, that he just
Yes.
wanted to get out there and beat you. And when you
Yes.
start winning, it's fun again. You
Oh,
feel
yeah.
young again.
Well,
It's not.
this is a level of win too that Stafford has never tasted before.
Yeah.
He's never. I mean, he has the passing yards, he has the touchdowns, he has every accolade you could chalk up to a quarterback and say, why hasn't he been here before? But then you stamp Detroit on the map and say this is why, right? It's for the most part an abomination of a program, I guess you could say, an organization. But like you said, you could tell the past couple of years in Detroit, it's almost like he was going through the motions. He was playing quarterback. I think he was still giving it his effort out there.
Sure.
But I don't think I think the physical investment was there, but I don't think the mental investment was there. And I think now you have a contribution of mental and physical at probably the highest capacity it's ever been at since the day he was drafted.
Yeah. And, it's so that's on the Rams side. I wish I would have sent over the picture to Isaac earlier, but there's that great photo of Matt Stafford and his wife.
I saw it where she was hugging him.
Yeah, that's just that's somebody that like exercised the demon. So I see maybe the Elway type run with the Rams. On the flip side of this, I think Cincinnati can go one of two ways. Is they can become this, dynasty sort of run. Or, man, that's going to be tough in the AFC. Let's just be realistic about it now. Because you've got, I'm just thinking as I speak, Mahomes and the Chiefs, Allen and the Bills, Burrow and the Bengals. Like, those are some heavyweight punchers who are young.
And to be honest, Justin Herbert, the Chargers are only a couple pieces away defensively from really competing.
And they're young.
Yeah.
And, so Cincinnati's going to be pictured in that. Or it's going to be one of the greatest 30 for 30 episodes we have ever seen.
One and done type. Yeah.
When it if it implodes in Cincinnati, it will do it in a gorgeous, miraculous fashion. It'll be, Jamar Chase getting cars repoed and Burrow losing his house, and
it could be
go one of two ways.
It could be a Jamarcus Russell type collapse, right? It could be a Jamarcus Russell type collapse. I don't think, like you said, I don't think there's a gray area. I think it's going to be either tremendous success or they're going to be the Bengals that we knew they were, the past however many years.
Yeah. I'll tell you this, though. I mean, I think, we talk about if you're going to put down bets, and I know, make sure you join us, FL Teams. We're going to do a Super Bowl props show as well, and hopefully a roundtable to break that down. So you're giving me 4 points in these playoffs. I don't even need to know who the team is. I'm taking the 4.
Oh, easy.
Right.
Easy.
That covers the field goal.
Yeah. It covers the McPherson field goal. Yeah, right. That's exactly what it does.
Give me 4. I'll take 4 all day.
I think this first during the Super Bowl, I think we'll see a shaky first quarter. Maybe first 17 minutes or so. I think we see fireworks the second half. I think you see the moxie, the not arrogance but confidence. You see it start to exude in the Bengals offense. And I think in turn, the Rams defense, they have some egos over there too. Jalen Ramsey is an ego type of guy, right? Aaron Donald he's more of a reserved ego, but he still knows what he can do in between the tackles, right? And then you have Von Miller, who's been there, done that. They had one of the best Yeah. So I think come second half, we start to see what this game is really going to shape out to be. And I think we see some fireworks come second half. I'm hoping anyway.
I wonder, it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of when you're against the Rams. Because, you can't do what Cincinnati did in the second half to Mahomes, right? You can't go 3 and drop 8 because Stafford will carve you up. He'll hit Tyler Higbee. He'll throw to the back. Stafford will take what you are giving him all day long. He's not going to get a hero complex.
No.
So you can't stay that far off. Now, on the flip side, if you bring heat, he can make you pay. So, it's almost like you just got to play it kind of squared up.
I almost think that you roll with the if it ain't broke, don't fix it You play the bend but don't break. As long as you don't let Cooper Kupp or Odell get behind the safeties, it's like we'll get you down inside the red zone and make you really work for it, right? Because the field's everything's tighter in the red zone. I think that's got to be Cincy's approach. Like you said, what they did with Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay threw a 0 at him. What did he do? He said, "Oh yeah, hey Coop, go deep."
Yeah.
You do. He's got two backs. Both Sony Michel and Cam Akers can catch out of the backfield.
Yep.
That's kind of what Sony Michel's one of his strong points was in New England, was that he was so versatile out of the backfield, and he's a mismatch. So you almost you hope that they play the bend but don't break style defense. Let's not let Cooper get behind us. Let's not let Odell get behind us. We'll give them what they want in front of us and hope to hold them to 3. And that's, to me, that's got to be a win for them, right? Because if we're talking kickers here, I'm taking Evan McPherson over Matt Gay all day.
All day. And, I think for Cincinnati on the offensive end, I think it's going to be really important that they stay balanced or try to, right? Yeah. You can't just forget about Mixon in this game. Mixon can, he can still catch a little bit out of the backfield and stuff, but you can't forget about him in this game. As much as it's going to be tempting to get into a shootout, you're going to have to pick those spots and create them, because I think Ramsey's going to be in Chase's hip pocket. The only way that you're going to get that shot that you want is they're going to have to respect and not be able to bracket Chase. So, I think Mixon, you've got to stay with that and at least try to.
I think you're exactly right. If you look back at the what's it called, the stats for the rushing attack from Cincinnati, Mixon had 21 carries for 88 yards, and did the chunk of his work in the fourth quarter when that front seven started to get worn down a little bit. No matter how you carve it up, Kansas City's front seven, besides Chandler Jones, they're a finesse style defense. Melvin Ingram, William Gay, Nick Bolton, all those guys are finesse style. Like, it's not to say that they're afraid of contact, but they're not gap fillers for the most part. You can't. Those guys aren't successful if the opposite side lines up an I form and runs the ball down their throat. They're going to get fatigued. It's inevitable. I think 21 times for 88 yards for Joe Mixon, almost 4.5 yards a carry. I mean, in two plays, you have a first down.
Yeah.
So, like you said, I think balance has to be the key. Joe Burrow can't do what he did against Tennessee and try to play hero ball and roll out of the pocket left and right, because Matthew Stafford's a completely different demon than Ryan Tannehill. And Matthew Stafford will hang 21 points on you in a handful of possessions, and you won't even realize he did it. So I think the importance for Cincinnati is, like you said, you have to maintain that balance. You can't get so far behind that you can't incorporate Joe Mixon into the ball game anymore.
Yeah, and I mean, the big advantage comes down to the Rams. They don't have to worry about, on the other side of the ball, the Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah,
right. They don't have to worry about that. And then the other part is, I'm not saying Jamar Chase is one-dimensional, because there's a lot of different ways he can beat you, but he's not going to line up the way that Cooper Kupp is. Cooper Kupp's going to be everywhere. Chase is going to be an outside receiver. He's rarely going to come in out of the slot. So you can shut him on an island, whatever. You're going to be able to find mismatches with Cooper Kupp. And Beckham on that side too. So I think they're going to have a lot more play. It's going to be a real challenge for Cincinnati's defense. Yeah. Not that Cincinnati's not going to challenge the Rams. I just think the Rams have pieces that can offset some of that danger.
I think similar to what we talked about with Kansas City, where Cincinnati, they gave them a lot of the middle. They gave them a lot of the underneath. You can't do that with the Rams, because Stafford will eat that up, man. He's not a Jared Goff dink and dunk, but he's smart enough to know, hey, if they're giving me 11 yards, Cam Akers can turn it into 21. Odell Beckham, I mean, if they're gonna shadow a safety over top and give Odell Beckham one-on-one, sorry, Cooper, maybe next drive, we're gonna hit Odell until they bring that safety back to the middle of the field. I don't think Stafford's going to have to take what he's given, because I think that's cake for him.
Yeah, and I mean, and Cooper Kupp is just Cooper Kupp. I mean, the kid slides you. He's going.
He's
not, he's not our prototypical, small white receiver. He's got legs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wes Welker would beat you to death underneath, but he wasn't going to take you 60 yards. I mean, Cooper Kupp will slide you, and he's gone.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp's got speed to him. He's not 4.3 guy, but if you look at him, you don't think he's going to burn past you until he's 10 yards in front of you, right? He's got really sneaky speed, probably more quickness than he has of straight line speed, but he beats people off routes so bad that he's got enough speed to where if he's in front of you by 4 or 5 yards, unless you're running a 4.1 40, you're not going to be able to make that up to be able to catch him.
And the scary thing is, again, the connection that he's been able to build in such a short time with Matt Stafford.
Absolutely.
Near the end of that San Francisco game, they were literally just creating the matchup to put Cooper Kupp one-on-one, and Cooper had like 4 or 5, route options off his tree. It wasn't just set. It was him and Matt were going to read each other. Yeah. And before Cooper's making the cut, Stafford already put it there. What do you do with that? I mean,
and what's so dynamic about Cooper Kupp, like you said, is his route tree. He's not. You remember John Ross coming out of Washington, super electric player, but running in one direction, right? Either a slant or straight down the field. Cooper Kupp has a route tree where in one route he can add in three different techniques to it. Like he's that skilled and his footwork is that precise. Yeah. So, like you said, I mean that stuff right there will eat you up. I mean, faster than you can even think about it.
Absolutely. So, man, I think this has been an exciting run through all this. I can't wait till it's going to be bittersweet. The post Super Bowl show.
I know,
that
man.
I know we'll do because it'll be wrapping up. Hard to break down the Pro Bowl, but in between now and then, man, we got us. We're going to talk about the Super Bowl props. Hopefully, get together and do a roundtable coming in just to have some discussion because there's going to be extra stories that are going to come out too.
Oh yeah,
and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be sort of like the TMZ of this, man, because the reason that I became a sports fan, and I've said it many times over and over, is I love the humanity of the stories underneath it. I love the perseverance. I love the overcoming. I love the Stafford grinding away to get a chance now to do this. I love the Joe Burrow, who was an afterthought until he went into Tuscaloosa and hung it up on Alabama.
Three-star recruit out of high school to Ohio State.
Right. So all of those stories, and we know that the Super Bowl week's going to give us a lot of that. Because there's unsung stories here everywhere underneath it all. But outside of that, man, I think it's going to be a super exciting game. Like I said, I'll early on in the line, I'll take the 4. I don't care who's getting it. Yeah. Just give me the 4. So yeah, man. Any final thoughts on what we're looking at going into this?
I don't see this game. I don't see this game escaping Stafford. I think McVay is going to be. I don't want to say overprepared because I don't think he's going to pull a Mike Vrabel and outcoach his own scheme. I think that's what the Titans did against the Bengals. They outcoached themselves. They made it more complicated than what it was. I don't think you have to do that with the skill players you have with the Rams. It's just so simple. And I don't think Aaron Donald being there for the second time, I think Von Miller's getting towards that back end of his career. I don't think he's very far away from maybe hanging his cleats up. Maybe less than a handful of years left, especially if they win. I don't see this game escaping Stafford. I can see, and I hope, I would like to see him get his dues paid. I would like to see him be able to hoist that Lombardi when the confetti's dropping on him in SoFi Stadium.
Yeah, and I think also McVay has a lot to prove because of the egg they laid in his one appearance in the Super Bowl. Right?
Oh yeah,
they got dominated by that defense from New England, and I think he's the kind of guy that he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who makes the same mistake twice.
No, and to go out and make the acquisitions that they did this season, going to grab Jalen Ramsey the year before, Stafford this offseason, Von Miller, OBJ. I mean, they made the win now acquisitions.
Yeah. You know what? And I'll wrap it up with this. I'll give Cincinnati one more big credit here. And the credit is that the Cincinnati public schools have already declared the following Monday is like a holiday.
I saw that.
So say what you will, Cincinnati knows whether it wins or it loses, that city's gonna burn. Something, Cincinnati, they're ready for whatever it brings. I think good or bad, Cincinnati's gonna party in a big way.
I'm excited, man. I've got the Rams. Either way, I'm happy for. I want to see Stafford. I think get what he's owed. I think he deserves it, man.
I'm with you. All right, man. So with that one, we'll wrap up. We'll be back next week with our props, and as well as leading into the next week behind that with FL Teams. Go to flteams.com. Go check it out, man. All things Florida sports. A lot of big stuff happening in college football, signings, recruits coming in and out. A lot of stuff to talk about over there. So we look forward to seeing you guys all there. EJ, pleasure as always. All right, buddy. We'll see
Thank you, sir.
Week. Yeah.